Welcome to the Chamber of Schenectady County's Business Advocacy Council interview with Hugh Farley, who is a candidate for the 49th State Senate District. I'm Jack Aernecke, and I'm pleased to be your host today. The Chamber's Business Advocacy Council is bipartisan and issue-focused, and today we'll be talking about issues that affect businesses in Schenectady County and around the Capital Region. Hugh, thanks very much for being with us today.
Nice to be with you, Jack.
A lot of issues that involve the taxpayers of the state, and I think one of the biggest ones overall is education. Businesses certainly need an educated workforce to hire the people that they need to be competitive locally, nationally, and globally. And yet there seem to be some issues as far as education is concerned. Let's start first off. How big a priority is education for you?
It's been a major priority for me. I've been a teacher, I was a law professor for most of my working life, and my family are all teachers. To be honest with you, Jack, it is a major priority of mine. It has been a major priority of the Senate majority for many years. It's been perhaps our number one majority as a Senate. Very complicated mission. The Governor Cuomo, has complained and said that we spend more than any other state in the nation in educating our students, and we're not getting the product, supposedly. We have a very diverse system. Unfortunately, it's funded by real property taxes in the rural and upstate areas, and there's a lot of resentment on that, particularly from the elderly that have no children in school and so forth. The rural schools and the city schools, they have different focuses. The rural schools have no tax base. They're struggling to exist. The city schools have a lot more problems with minority students and so forth that need extra special care. And the funding has been kind of mixed. When the Democrats had control of the Senate, they passed what they called the gap elimination, which really cut the heart out of much of the school districts, particularly the city of Schenectady. We have worked to try to eliminate that. I think it's going to be eliminated by 2016 and maybe sooner because we're doing well financially, the state. But education is very, very important. It's the reason the Capital Region here that it's become a high-tech center is because of the high education level, the universities and so forth, and they're focusing here, and that's one of the major reasons. We have to educate our children better because we're moving into a whole new specialized area of high-tech, and they've got to be educated in the sciences and the maths in particular.
You mentioned the gap elimination program, the effort to get rid of that. But at this particular point, Schenectady is getting, as you know, 54% of the state aid that it's entitled to. Other districts are getting some more. There's one down on Long Island that's getting 110%. Will getting rid of the gap elimination situation make that money situation more equitable, or does that have
somewhat, not necessarily, because what you're talking about may be a situation. Most of your rural schools, Indian Lake and so forth, that you're familiar with, get a lot of state aid per pupil, like 80 and 90%. But they're still poverty struck. The people are very poor up there, and their schools are struggling. They're dropping programs and so forth because they don't have enough money. It's a very complicated situation. I think in the rural areas, and this is controversial, I think we have to do a lot more in mergers. Do you know how many people graduated last year in Long Lake in their graduating class? 1. So consequently, you can't sustain a school K through 12 with 50-some students. So there's got to be a merger. Unfortunately, I think we can keep the elementary schools in the local area, but the high school kids and so forth, they're going to have to take some bus rides.
And merging would get rid of some of the chiefs, which are costly also, the superintendents and principals.
There's such overlap of, but you know, they're very hard because they don't want to lose the basketball team. They don't want to lose their identity. So mergers are very tough, and we've got to provide incentives or something to make it happen.
What about Common Core? What's your opinion on that?
It's been a disaster. The rollout of it has been a disaster. I am running on a line to stop and reform Common Core. I got 4,400 signatures like this. There's people were saying, where do I sign? Parents, mothers, and so forth. The idea of it is good. It's to increase the level of education for our students. Very, very important and excellent. But the rollout has been disastrous. Mm-hmm. The kids the teachers hate it. All the teachers hate it. I had teachers that would say, boy, I'd love to sign that, but I'm afraid of retribution. And some did sign it anyway because they didn't care. But my point of it is, I think we have to do better with that area. Because, Jack, I could tell you the complaints, I've been in government for a long time, the complaints that we've had on Common Core are like nothing I've ever seen.
The overall concept of Common Core is good, though. You agree with that?
Of course, I do. Mm-hmm. But it's got to be reformed. There's too much testing, and it's not doing the job.
Let's get on to another big issue, the amount of my property taxes, and indeed everybody's property taxes, who go to stuff other than police protection and garbage collection, and that's through the mandates. The governor has said the state is very good at telling local governments what they need to do and very bad at providing the money to do it. How do you see change happening with that particular area?
Okay, I hate to get personal here, but the Senate, again, that has been a major priority for us, to mandate relief, to try to do something. We came up with a huge list, sent it over to the Assembly. You know how many they wanted to do? How about 0? And the governor put together a panel that went around the state to come up with recommendations for mandate relief. Its silence has been deafening. It's tough. We have to do more. Now, there are certain mandates that are very important. You got to teach English in high school and that sort of thing. But a lot of these mandates are struggling strangling local government, and we have to make it easier for them. I think the best government is the government closer to the people. They know what they have to do and what they need, and we hear mandates all the time, mandate relief, and it is a major priority for us.
30 to 40% of a person's property tax goes to Medicaid. Should the state take over Medicaid and not make it a county responsibility?
Yes, but you got to realize 60-some-odd% of the Medicaid is spent in New York City. It is a very, very important item to the Assembly and many other people. That's going to be quite a burden to the state taxpayer if they do it. As far as I'm concerned, I said, all right, if that's what they want, but you're going to see the state income tax have to rise, because Medicaid is like 30 to 40% of our state budget. It's huge. We spend more on Medicaid than Texas and California combined, and they're both bigger than us. It's unbelievable.
So where do you see the solution in being able to make that less of a burden?
Well, we have what we call the Rolls-Royce of Medicaid. Number one, I think that we have to put ourselves in line with the rest of the nation for Medicaid, but that's very hard to do. You don't take something away that somebody's got. Number two, I think we have to go after the fraud in Medicaid. One of the wealthiest people in the New York State Senate, who incidentally is in prison as we sit here now, ran a Medicaid mill. Now, who makes money off Medicaid around here, you don't know. But the volume of Medicaid in the city, and the fraud, we estimate if we can get 10% of the fraud, 10% of the fraud, it's worth billions and billions of dollars in taxpayer saving. There's one area that we can attack. We do have a Medicaid Inspector General who's working on it. I would like to see more action there.
Does that Medicaid Inspector General have enough tools to work with, enough bodies?
We try to give it to them, and they are doing some more work in that area. But that's a huge burden on the state. Medicaid is a huge burden.
Let me get back to education again just for a moment.
Sure.
One of the other things that is of great concern, and I think you alluded to it, not specifically, but alluded to it, in science, 22 other countries are ahead of the United States in education. 19 others are ahead of us in reading. We have this Common Core, the overall Common Core concept. Is that the way to attack that particular problem, or do other things need to be done?
I think other things need to be done, Jack, to be very honest with you. Attendance is terribly important. Now, we have very good attendance in upstate New York and so forth, but when a kid doesn't go to school, he's not going to learn. And I think we have to put an emphasis on basics. I think science is terribly important. But of course, reading is terribly important. Show me a good reader and I'll show you a good student. All of this are things. I'm terribly interested in education, and my kids got a wonderful education in Niskayuna where I lived, and I'm thrilled with what the schools did for them. And I just wish the difference in education is terrible. For instance, I've got some rural schools that are dropping music, dropping art, dropping everything, having one language, and closing their libraries and so forth. I just wish everybody could get the same education in New York State. I don't have the answer for that, but it is a real problem.
Okay, and in the closing couple of minutes that we have, as a candidate for the New York State Senate, why should a member of the chamber vote for you?
Well, I appreciate that. I'm proud of my service, Jack. I think I've served with integrity, and I think that anybody that's followed my career could agree with that. I have really worked hard. I've been supported every year that I've ever run by the small business people. And this, incidentally, they are the ones that create jobs. In the city of Schenectady, in this area, I was the author and established Metroplex. I brought the state many thousands of state jobs to Schenectady. I had the Zone 5 Police Academy, which is named after me, which is a thrill. I got $1 million grant for the Union College Graduate School. I have supported proctors with many air conditioned it, put seats in there, and did many, many things, because I think proctors was the impetus to making downtown Schenectady start to really blossom. And I think I've been a very large part of that. I'm proud of my Senate career. I've worked hard. I'm enthusiastic about going back. I think it's very, very important that we have bipartisan government. I think the idea that we have worked well with the governor, the Senate majority has. We passed on-time budgets and so forth. And when they had one party control with the Democratic Senate, it was a fiasco. I think everybody remembers that. It was just maddening. It was enough for me to want to leave government. But I'm excited about going back. I think we've got some great opportunities. I loved what is happening in New York State here in this capital region with the high-tech development. I think it's so exciting, some of the things that are happening here. And there's great opportunity in this state. And we're all trying to improve the economy upstate, and that's a major priority for us.
Okay. Hugh Farley, thank you very, very much for taking the time to join me today and to share your thoughts and ideas on issues facing us in Schenectady and indeed in the entire capital region. To see interviews with candidates for the New York State 46th and 49th Senate District, 110th, 111th, and 112th State Assembly Districts, and New York's 20th Congressional District, please visit www.schenectadychamber.org. And please remember to vote on Election Day, Tuesday, November 4th.